Welcome to Digital Current, where leaders share their experiences on how they leverage technology to transform their outcomes and their businesses. Today, I have a good friend and CEO of cityCURRENT, Jeremy Park. Welcome, Jeremy. It's great to see you.
Hey, it's always good to see you, my friend. We've had a long relationship on the cityCURRENT side and partnership, and appreciate your partnership and friendship for all these years. So thank you.
Same here. I know we've been partners for more than 7 years, and I love the mission, Power the Good, but I'm not the right person to tell exactly what cityCURRENT really does. I wish you can tell us what is cityCURRENT all about.
Absolutely. So it's a team of businesses. And so eBiz Solutions, as you mentioned, longtime partner, but it's a team of corporations. So it's FedEx and AutoZone and Kroger, and from very large all the way down to Napa Cafe and entrepreneurs. So small, medium, and very large businesses that come together to power the good. That's our mission, as you mentioned. We do three main things. We do events, media, and philanthropy. So those are the three legs of the stool, if you will, that create the mission and all the engagement. But on the event side, we have teams in Memphis and in Nashville, so we're working parallel in both communities, but we'll do over 300 events a year. It's about 150 to 180 in each city, and it's workshops and seminars, bringing in national guest speakers, executive lunches, social mixers, anything we can do to enrich and engage and foster collaboration within our community. So it's a lot of events. And on the media side, it's all focused on positives, promoting the good news and how to get involved, lessons that are being learned. We've got 4 different TV shows. We've got 2 different radio shows, podcasts, books, columns, you name it, tons of media. And then philanthropically, we'll give hundreds of thousands of dollars to nonprofits. So it's the financial contributions. But most importantly for me and kind of my heart, but also for us as an organization, it's the physical engagement, the volunteerism. And so we have a ton of just turnkey volunteer opportunities for companies to engage their employees as armies of do-gooders to go out and serve and have a higher purpose of making a difference in the community. And so that's where all of it kind of funnels in and creates this powerful opportunity for us to power the good together. And so that's who we are. That's what we do. And we're honored to be able to work with leaders like yourself and make a difference.
Jeremy, like everything you have mentioned, right, and things that I have taken part in the companies that we thoroughly enjoy your mission, but also how we are giving back to the community, and we're very glad to be part of the cityCURRENT. And one of the things about cityCURRENT is mostly, right, they are face-to-face, right? So a lot of even when you're doing volunteer work or a big breakfast events, right? Large, small events, mostly it's face-to-face, right? So as this is more face-to-face, when COVID hit initially, what was your immediate reaction? Like, how did you turn around with COVID?
Yeah, well, the immediate reaction was like, what are we gonna do? Like every other group, like event-driven organizations, you're shell-shocked at first in terms of, okay, what do we do? Do we hunker down and weather the storm, or do we start to pivot? And at first you think it's 2 weeks, and then you realize, no, it's a lot longer. We need to really go all in and pivot. Looking back, people say, oh, well, you were the innovators and you did all these things. And it's like, well, we did it out of necessity. And we did it because we knew that nonprofits were relying on us to fulfill this mission to power the good. And so we had a higher purpose, obviously, to say we can't just give up. We've got to continue this mission. And to your point, when you're an in-person organization built around collaboration and fostering city building and, basically bringing people together to make a difference, COVID definitely threw a huge monkey wrench in that, in terms of how do you then shift to a digital online platform. And so for us, when you talk about digital transformation and obviously the world that you're in, we immediately flipped the switch to taking our events online to virtual. And so things like our signature speaker series event with national guest speakers, our workshops, our seminars, all of these things, pretty much overnight, we flipped the switch and said, let's go virtual. And so we used Zoom primarily as the vehicle to do that. And a lot of lessons learned, which obviously we can, dive in deeper on any of these. But luckily for us on the media side, coming from the world of television, we were able to take a lot of the lessons learned from hosting TV shows and radio shows and things like that to be able to create an online experience that was engaging. And I think many made the mistake of taking it in person and then just flipping it over without thinking, how is this going to play out and engage an online audience, because it is different. And so we were able to at least pivot successfully because of that prior experience to create these, really powerful ways for us to continue our mission. And I'll tell you, the silver lining on that is a few things. One is we opened up the floodgates to a global audience. Traditionally, you'd have to be in person in Memphis or in Nashville to participate. And all of a sudden, by having these virtual events, we started having people around the world, especially through social media and sharing guest speakers like Jocko Willink, who have huge followings themselves. We were having thousands then come in and participate from around the world. Companies like FedEx and Smith & Nephew and AutoZone, global companies, could then share these experiences out globally with their directors and managers and employees. And so a silver lining was the engagement level went through the roof in terms of new opportunities for an online audience. And then you look at even the media, the radio show, for instance, we had to be in person traditionally to host the show. So I'd have to coordinate all the guests and get them there at the same time. And, you have an in-person dynamic, but once again, through Zoom, I could host this radio show. And now, to be honest, I probably will never go back into a radio recording studio. For TV, we will for different reasons, but I can now do it so much more efficiently and effectively and get the video that's high quality 1080 HD. So, to make a long story short, although the hand was forced to shift over and leverage technology in a whole new way for the events, the media, and even the philanthropy, technology really allowed us to not only continue the mission, but ultimately to grow in some new powerful ways that eventually led us to launching an e-learning platform called CURRENT, which has opened up so many more opportunities for our future to really engage a global audience in a whole new way that prior to COVID, we didn't have that. And so I do think that while COVID has been brutal in terms of obviously just going through it in the roller coaster ride, and obviously we're still kind of navigating through it, and our numbers were down financially, just like every other nonprofit and organization kind of like us, chambers and different groups, our numbers were with theirs. But coming out of this, we have a whole new wealth of opportunities that were not there prior. And like I said, we've been able to continue the mission, which honestly is just that in and of itself is a warm heart feeling for sure.
Sure. You told some of the things that I just gave just before the pandemic about digital transformation. When you talk about digital transformation, right, people always are set in doing the way they're doing until, because of the disruption, it pushed everybody to the edge to start thinking. But if you look at this from a technology perspective, all these technologies are available, right? Nothing came out. Now they're just being enhanced. But I think the positive side of disruption, like you mentioned, is you reimagined your business model, right? Now you have a growth current, and then you have cityCURRENT, but not only those breakfast meetings are not only just for in-person, but for the overall, for the world to engage and see and learn. Many people around the world would not have that opportunity to listen to the great speakers. I think that is really, you have reached a new market, which is what digital transformation should be all about. But also, I think it would have added you some revenues, right? Now, did it cut some of the barriers that were there before? Because it was physical, it was a barrier before. Could you just explain about how are you cutting the barriers and reaching the new users using the technology, the tools, and also the social media and the platforms that are available today, and what you are planning to do with the things that you have learned, the lessons?
Sure. And obviously you've been an evangelist on digital transformation, think digital first. And so this forced the hand for sure. But it does force you to self-reflect on each one of our different event series. And so there are a number of different series and workshops that we host as ongoing opportunities. For instance, Get On Board, which is a workshop series we do in partnership with the Assisi Foundation, designed to help nonprofit leaders and those corporate leaders who are serving on boards ultimately help nonprofits thrive. And so it's really built around nonprofits thriving. That event used to be only in person. It will never go back to in person because we've created such an online global audience of individuals who love the content, and we can tap in different speakers and panelists and everything else, reimagining that series and realizing we can save the money on, we had to provide a lunch and there was a lot of cost. When you talk about events, they are definitely a lot of cost and time in terms of execution and planning and everything else. In this way, it's become so much more efficient, reaching so many more people. And so the impact, going back to really what are you in it for, looking at impact, the impact now is so much greater being able to think digital first. Does this make sense to be digital first, or should it go back to in person? And I think for us now, we've realized that moving forward, there's always going to be a hybrid element, but it might actually be a digital first. And so whether that's the media side, the event side, the philanthropic side, all of that now becomes, how can we think digital first? And even when you get into the event side, you have to break down, because when you talk about an event, it's an experience.
Yep.
People are going to come back if you're providing an experience. Now, there has to be obviously good content, like a good speaker who's going to deliver value, but ultimately little things like, for us as an in-person event, you would want to take a picture at the end with the guest speaker. And so we thought, well, how can we leverage technology and do that? And we realized we can do it as screenshots and put them in a breakout room and then, kind of work our way through so that everybody gets a screenshot with Jocko at the end. And so it's once again thinking creatively around, how do you, leverage technology, but provide an in-person experience that people will remember. And so I think there is a human element, an emotional element that you have to tie in, obviously, with this technology element that gives you a distinct advantage. And now it's, as we're getting back into the in-person, it's, okay, how do we do digital check-in? How do we do, all of these things that, once again, reimagining literally every step of the experience to tie in an element of, could we do this partially digital, all digital? Where does this then land afterward in terms of the links and where we're sending people? And, is this something that we can pull in as one place or send them multiple places? It's so much more than a website or a platform. It's a full on, how do we provide an experience that, to your point, leverages the best of the best, so that in the end, you're giving a very frictionless experience for the user, the end user.
So that brings a great point. So what you are talking, which a lot of companies don't think, especially traditional companies that are in business, trying to, they talk about transformation. But a lot of times when they talk about technology transformation, they're trying to replace, not reimagine. But whatever you said is more not replacing. You're talking more about reimagining, right? Being creative. When we are moving this, okay, what else can we do? All right, let's now rethink about what are the outcomes we are trying to do and what are the new things we can bring. You expanded the market, you expanded the way you want to deliver. So I think that's a big lesson I think people should learn from here. And I think what cityCURRENT has done is a fantastic job of totally reimagining the business rather than trying to replace, right? So from in-person to just digital. No, you didn't replace. Now you thought through, okay, now as we're transforming this, what else can we build into this? That is where a lot of companies fail. And I think you have done a great job. But one of the biggest factor of any transformation in your, especially in cityCURRENT thing, is not only from your end, you can transform, you can bring up new technologies or new platforms, a new way to do business, but how did people, right, responded to it? So could you talk about a little bit about how did you change the mindset of people that are so used to coming and shaking hands to going digital, but still having a great experiences? What are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, and I want to go back because I think the reimagining is an important element. To your point, is it's not replacing certain things, because to fulfill the mission of to power the good, people drive that. And so the way we will engage them, might be a little different, but ultimately, like I said, it goes back to, we have to be cognizant of the experience that we're providing them, whether they're in person or online, and realize that it's two different things. And so, even on your point, when you talk about the switch and even where we are today, you have different ages, you have different technology user levels, if you will. And so some were very easy to flip over and learn how to do an interview through Zoom and how to make changes and things like that. But we had ourselves to learn. And I definitely had to learn, okay, here's how to troubleshoot and walk somebody through if they can't figure out how to turn on their camera, or if it's, being blocked over here. And so you got to go back in and change the permission settings, and how to, virtual backgrounds and all the kind of stuff, the little things, especially for guest speakers who had to learn, they were used to being in person, and all of a sudden now they're having to present virtually and look at themselves. And it's, it's just a different world. So teaching people how to use it was one element of it. And then engaging them was a whole nother. And, whether it was through the chat features, the Q&A, the affiliate links, and kind of working through all of those sides, the engagement to different places was different. And even for us now as a hybrid, we're kind of testing different things. Right now, we're looking at how can you engage an in-person and an online audience together? Well, we're using a text number. So that way the online audience can text in, and I can be there with my phone pulling up in real time the questions that they want to ask the guest speaker, just like the in-person audience is. And so both places are feeding to one, so they both feel connected to the same experience. And I can moderate that conversation and engage, both. And then we're having to make sure that we're looking into the camera, inviting them to participate. We have somebody on our team managing the online experience. That's a whole nother thing, that when you talk about the AV techs, we now have two techs basically for every event. We have one managing the sound and the AV and everything in the room, and we have another solely dedicated to the online audience. You can't forget about the online audience. It can't just be a throwaway. For them to feel special, for them to feel engaged, you have to put the focus and the priority on them. And so we have somebody laser focused on them and making sure that they're answering questions, putting in, we do some crazy things, but it's like we do trivia with them. We do all sorts of, where are you logging in from, warming them up, letting them talk to each other a little bit, because people want engagement. And so I just think that, for us, obviously on the event side, and I would encourage anyone in the event business, it's all the little things. It's the little things that are going to be remembered. And it's the little things that, it goes back to the old saying, people aren't going to remember what you say. They're going to remember how you made them feel. And ultimately, that's what all of this is. It's how are we leveraging technology so that we make you feel inspired, connected, motivated. And that's the kind of stuff, to me, that you have to back up and realize, what's the mission? What's the purpose? Technology, while it needs to be digital first in terms of the operations and business and how we're thinking about it now more than ever, it still has to be rooted in what's the experience, what's the mission, what's the purpose, the higher purpose that we're trying to achieve, and realize that it comes down to people. Ultimately, if we forget that, we're going to fail.
I think you got a very good point, which is it's not just about the technology. How do you use technology to manage emotions of people, right? At a different point, where it's a peak points or valley points, how are you managing emotions through technology? Which I think you have mentioned, how you have another person, one person just for the online, so that you're making sure they're engaged, their emotions are being understood and responds to that. And also, coming to the events, a lot of people will come, but some of them are not so social to ask a question, right? So now we are giving another platform to, hey, you can just text your question, because a lot of people want to ask and they don't want to be the one that's standing up and asking that question. Here, at least they can ask without knowing who they are and people, everybody knowing who they are. I think that's a great, great way so that people, everybody has the chance to ask questions and without being worried about they'll be like somebody is going to point them or so. So I think that's a one. I think one of the things I've seen while I was coming to City Current events is it's something easy. I think it's a lot of people responding through text. So with all the learnings you have today, right? So with all the experience you have, do you think you have still a lot more to learn? And what kind of advice you give to people in the industry, like where you are, right? So what they need to be doing and what they may constantly be thinking about.
Well, I think the pandemic in general has humbled all of us. And I do think that the older you get, the more you realize you don't know. And so for me, we have an endless amount to learn. Every day I'm learning, and, I'm trying to learn from people just like you. It's like, you want to surround yourself with very smart people who are innovating and pushing forward in all these different industries and ways. And so you want to surround yourself with individuals because, I might know a little bit over here, but ultimately I've got so much more to learn. And, we're just scratching the surface with what the real potential is. And I look at this as a powerful way for us to change the world. And to do that, we need to think differently and continue to innovate and realize that we are only scratching the surface. And as far as we come, we still have so much further to go, right? And so I just think that for me, my advice would be for any organization, one, do take your advice and reach out to people like yourself who can be an advocate and an expert stepping in and a mentor to really give you the guidance necessary to think digital first, to look at your operations and start figuring out, and maybe you do it slow at first and then you can accelerate it. But what are the small things that we can start to transition and be more on the virtual side, the digital side, upgrading websites, looking at virtual events, whatever it is, tapping into an online opportunity, a digital opportunity, even with artificial intelligence and leverage. Like there's so many ways you can do it now. But I think my biggest advice is go back to realize you're providing an experience, whether that's internal with your own employees or external with an audience. It goes back to how are you making them feel? We get caught so much in delivering content now more than ever. We can have meetings all day long with Zoom after Zoom after Zoom or Teams after Teams or whatever it is in Slack. And we've got all these communication channels, but ultimately we're just trying to deliver information, deliver content. How are we making you feel? If you can stop and really back up and say, okay, what's the experience? What are we trying to make them feel? How do we provide an easy, frictionless experience from everything from registration and sign up to logging in to once they get in, making them feel welcome and they're not, someone who's kind of intimidated or going to be even online or in person, either way. Like people don't like attending events where they don't feel connected, right? And so whether it's online or in person, how do you make them feel connected? Especially when people have been disconnected for 2+ years now. So how do you make them feel welcome? And then how do you drive that engagement, during the event and then after? And that can be from a volunteer event, that can be a workshop, a seminar, that can be a team meeting, that can be literally anything. I think many times, even for team meetings, you forget about it's still an experience. Like your employees still want an experience. Even though they're logging in for a task at hand. And so I just think stepping back and looking at it holistically is that will help create more opportunities for you to leverage technology in the most meaningful way that in the end is going to give you ROI, but in the end is also going to allow you some new, fresh energy to start looking at everything else you're doing and leverage technology to benefit all these other ways that you would have never normally looked at it. So look at experience, look at how you're making people feel, and then root that in technology, and you have a recipe for success.
I think what you just shared is what we generally try to do is breaking an experience into smaller task level and at individual steps look at what can we bring or what we can we connect together, right? Or make the experience better. I mean, Jeremy, thank you so much for sharing your experiences and learning today. Um, could you let people know where they can go and learn about City Current and about you?
Sure. So cityCURRENT is easy. It's citycurrent.com, citycurrent.com. And that's the electric current powering good in our community. So it kind of pulls from our TV shows, The Spark and the Spark Awards, but that's what the cityCURRENT is. So the electric current powering good, but it's citycurrent.com. And then it's at cityCURRENT is our handle on all social media. So we're easy to find. Andrew does a good job of sharing all of that on social media. And then you have my website is jeremycpark.com. Jeremy C. Park is all of my handles on social media. And then we also have growthcurrent.com is the e-learning platform for individuals around the world who want to tap into personal and professional development opportunities all online.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Sridhar. I appreciate it. And thank you for being a partner and a friend and helping us power the good. We appreciate you.